loud.
What a good noise. What a silly car.
Yeah.
So it's time to put the proper engine back in this thing. The proper engine that you probably, most of you, wouldn't know anything about, because I think it's been 4 years, 5 years?
Nah, it's been longer than that since the right engine was in. I think we've had it lying over there, machined for about that long.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have such a long story, so I won't bore you, but essentially we had lots of engine problems with this vehicle back in the day when we first built it, which were all because of some little rubber O-rings that sit inside an ATI damper, a harmonic balancer. The ones on the outside that you inspect easily looked fine, but the ones on the inside were not fine. And the result of that was that we were rattling main bearings really badly. And in the case of we had a really nice RHS aluminium 454 block, and we actually rattled out the cam bearings in it, and it needed line boring, oversized bearings putting in, and that was all done by Dave Knight. And yet sat underneath the pallet there for, I reckon, 4 years, something like that.
At least that, yeah, at least that.
Waiting for kind of an opportunity to put it in, but with the business and excitement of other stuff, and with me not doing much in the way of drifting nowadays, it kind of always got pushed back.
I mean, we almost tried for LZ Fest a few years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
But then there was some little issue.
Yeah, we've got an issue with the replacement valve. So we've got RHS 307cc billet heads on it, and the titanium valves that were in that, we'd got replacement valves because they were gone. They were corroded really badly and pitted, but the retainers for those valves, we were really struggling with finding the correct ones, because I think the standard ones are imperial, and there's a really close like 8mm equivalent for the retainers, the little V things that slot in, but they weren't exactly right. And we were kind of down to the wire and decided to just go with sticking with the LSX. So this is a 454 LSX steel block, and the reason why we've got the RHS equivalent of it is because the RHS equivalent of it is 48 kilos lighter than this, which is not insignificant in, you know, a front engine car, but also a massive lump. We've obviously got it pushed back as far as we can, but that's a massive difference to the balance of this car. So it was always the engine that we were supposed to have in, and we've just been getting by with the LSX for now. Nothing wrong with the LSX at all. It's obviously super stout. And since solving the ATI pulley problem, it's got daily engineering dry sump system on this with their ATI pulley on it. And it's been pretty much flawless, but we run open ITB, big issues for obviously filtration or lack of, and we think the valves are not seated particularly well on this. We're seeing lots of backfiring, and I think it's down on power as well. So we're not using it for anything, got no plans, but the problem is whenever we decide, we want to do something with this car, it's never ready, and there's always 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of work to do. So we figured now that kind of end of the season, in terms of my road cars, a lot of them are being put to sleep because they're not very friendly when it comes to salt.
No, you did that once, didn't you?
Yeah, so that one we made the mistake of driving through winter once, never, ever, ever again. Because yeah, carbon fibre car, nana, steel, box frame, tube, and asphalted roads basically nearly completely ruined that. That was horrible. This one obviously has been dry ice blasted as well, so kind of protective about this. It's got the carbon collective sealer, underbody sealer stuff on it, which is really good. So I'm not massively scared about driving that in the rain and stuff like that, but salted roads again, not so great. So yeah, time to get a job that's been long overdue done, and get this car ready for whatever may be next, because we were thinking about doing LZ Fest again this year, but again it was that whole thing, well, we've got to do 4 weeks worth of work before we can even consider using the car. So let's get it done in advance for once. Let's be a little bit more organised, find the problems while we're not on a massive deadline, and pull this engine, probably sell that engine as well, and be back to full horsey powers on this thing at some point. We've got a big list of other stuff that needs sorting on this. We've got like a voltage regulator on the alternator is down. We were seeing 17 volts the last time I used it at the end of the day.
Electric water pump in the back's gone.
Yeah, the
master cylinder and handbrake
gone.
Yeah.
the clutch release bearing stack height's wrong, but also that brings in a whole other issue in that it doesn't have an SFI bell housing on this car. It has like a cobbled together thing that was from the original ASCAR bell housing that's been welded and adapted to take the quaif. And it's always made me a little bit nervous with flywheel explosions, because the flywheel in this is homemade as well. We made this, and it's a big old lump of metal. So we might look at whether anything exists for this, but it's got a really weird starter motor position. It's a really small disc clutch, a 7¼ inch clutch, triple plate. So it's got a really small bell housing, and the starter's actually the opposite way around to most of them. So much like most of my things, it's way more complicated than it should be, but we're going to see what we can do with that as well. We haven't really updated you on anything for
a month or so, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably 2-3 weeks that Jay's been doing lots of work. I've been doing lots of boring stuff on my kitchen at home, obviously alongside normal work here. But Jay's been cracking on with some of the work that has been outstanding on these cars. So 964 clutch issues that we've had for ages, clutch clearance issues. We've changed that to an aftermarket master cylinder now. What did we go for?
Tilton. Yeah.
And made the clutch ever so slightly stiffer to be able to clear the clutch plates. It seems good, but we're not 100% sure whether
we went up 1 mil. We went up 1 mil on the master cylinder size, so
which we believe would be enough. But what I really need to do is drive this for some distance to tell, because it's when it gets hot, the clearance becomes much more of an issue. So I'm going to do a few journeys back to work and back with this thing, give that a test. But the big one that Jay's been on is the continuation of the simple power steering change. A few of you noticed in the video that we did when we were showing you this thing being converted. Fantastic job done with all the bracing up here, but we were seeing the motor so powerful that it was actually twisting the column there quite a lot. So more brackets have been made.
Yeah.
In fact, you can talk to everybody about it.
We made a new bracket here. Picks up on these 2 mounting points on the motor and braces it straight to the roll cage, and that just stops the rotational force.
Yeah, because this thing is so much more powerful than what was there before.
And further, it's all hanging out here as well, whereas it was tucked in before.
Yeah, but it's just a much bigger motor, so it's about as efficiently packaged as possible, but required this, which all this stuff. It looks pretty simple to a lot of people, but even just the research to find that bracket, to get the right one, the right diameter, takes time, and then the fabrication and the more bracket making here.
And the bigger job was the bearing under there.
Yeah, so I might need a torch to show that 1 second. So yeah, one other issue with this car that has been since day dot is that we've always had a little bit of a clunk in the steering. So you'd get like a little bit of notchiness, which we thought was like a bad UJ, because it's got multiple UJs in this system. But what we actually found was that if you look here, there was a single bearing here where it pushes through into the engine bay, and it wasn't supported well enough. So this little shaft that goes through, there's only a little shaft there, it was actually just moving ever so slightly as the steering was turned, and kind of causing this clunk. Now, how many days do you reckon that took to fix?
3, maybe 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Pretty full on miserable days to sort that.
It wasn't the easiest thing to get to.
No. So again, show the people what you actually did. I'll try and point the camera at this bit. So explain what you had to do here.
Well, it's still got the single bearing. It's mounted in the car and was machined into a housing that's welded into the firewall. So we made a bigger housing with an extra bearing in.
Oh, let me see if I can get my hand in here. This is not very good. So, see this bit here, this has been added. It's an additional housing that had to be machined exact size to slip over the other one, which had to be cleaned up and obviously surfaced correctly. So underneath here, oh god, this is difficult. Further back here is the original bearing.
Didn't it? You think it's difficult?
I was on fire watch for some of it. It was not fun. Yeah. So the original bearing's further back here. You can still get to it, and there's a bigger bearing on the outside here, and obviously that shaft also had to be machined and CNC.
It had to be made bigger. Yeah.
Lathed. People love it when we say that.
When we call it lathing.
But yeah, that then goes through into the engine bay here. Which is super tight, obviously. You're not going to see anything really.
Yeah,
you can just about see there. So looks like quite high angle that, but it's absolutely fine. But yeah, the double support on that shaft that goes through there has seemingly pretty much solved.
Well, you haven't taken it around the block, but on the ramp it doesn't.
Yeah.
About, so hopefully it's fine.
So no wobbles there, no wobbles at this end. Feels superb. We've got our increased steering resistance knuckle adapters on there, so high-speed steering. Hopefully all the power in the world for the power steering. I'm hoping that I can get it soft enough, I can get it unassisted enough, because it seems very over-assisted the first time I drove it. But we got a little adjuster knob here that I can just about reach. We did get some plugs from somebody. Somebody very kindly sent us the plugs.
Kerry Robbins from Milber Salvage and Spares.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they sent us Mark II. Thank you very much.
We are very, very grateful. Thank you very much. But yeah, we've got Mark III motor, so I still need to solve that issue for Jay. But yeah, E30 is ready for its track day that we've got, which is November 17th, I think. We're at Anglesey. If anybody fancies popping down, we'll be there. Got one little job to do on James's E36 M3 door cards.
I think we'll do that.
And then just perfect timing, compressor. Good time to stop waffling. Yeah. Then we'll crack on with this. Race car.
Digging out the barn find M3.
How many times do you think we cleaned dust off this without it running ever?
Oh, I mean, quite a few to be fair.
Yes, I know, internet. I know. And as for this project up here, talking about drift cars, that's a big one.
Well, let's sort of making that one into a big one now.
Yeah, we'll talk to you about that in a minute. So we've got the pallet out. That's the RHS block. See underneath there. Crank, which I think is a ground LSX crank, because the original Lanati crank that we had in this was toast. Loads of other stuff, and there will be some bits missing. As you can see, Jay got the engine out. It's currently wrapped up because Jay, Webby and Craig are now at SEMA. Been planned for ages. I should have gone, didn't. So yeah, very jealous. But while they're there, Jay's taken a valve and some of the locks that we've tried for that valve. See whether we can actually speak to some people face to face to try and solve that issue with the valve and valve locks. So the other thing that I didn't mention at the beginning of the video, the other big reason for the reluctance to do this simple swap for so many years and why the engine has sat on the shelf for so long is because of me and my slight issues when it comes to looking at work that we did many, many years ago when building these cars, I think a lot of you know what's coming. I try my best not to get too carried away with stuff, but it's inevitable that when I take the engine out, it reminds me of all the things that I thought were slightly flawed or could be improved on, because in hindsight you'd probably change anything you've ever done in your life, because you learn as you go, you improve as you go, and you get slightly more obsessive in my case as you go with certain things. So yeah, there are, needless to say, many things that I would, in an ideal world, change on this car. Now I do have to wind my neck in a little bit because the car doesn't really have a massive use. It's never been the most competitive car. It's certainly been a spectacle most of its life. But there are a lot of things that, some of it down to safety, some of it down to weight distribution, some of it down to necessity of things like water pipes going into a heater matrix inside of the car, some of it in terms of the headers that we originally made for this car that do hang very, very low on the one side of the car because of the issues with the steering column on that side. Some of it improvements in technology. Things like the hacked up tunnel, which was originally designed to go around the Jericho gearbox. Things like, I'm not sure if you can see there, but the oil pipes that come through the car, the water pipes that come through the car. Some of the weight distribution. Have to do quite a different ride height, left and right side on the rear axle here to get the corner weights correct for me sitting in here. So it might be that we can move a few bits over there. I'm very definitely trying not to get super carried away, because we just don't have the time or budget for getting too carried away with a car that I essentially use once a year, if that, at the moment. There are definitely a few things to come that will extend this project for perhaps a little bit more than the 2 or 3 weeks we originally spoke about. So yeah, lots more to come on that. I'll update you with any findings from Jay at SEMA as well in the next one, hopefully. But for now, that'll probably do it. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for supporting us by buying from Driftworks.com. The Black Friday sales have already started. Loads of bargains to be had, and more discounts will be added as we get them. So yeah, go check out Driftworks.com, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.